In this video, I'm going to go over the stocks in the nuclear energy sector that I believe could 10x from here. One of the big things with energy, nuclear energy, is this AI, right? AI consumption of electricity, massive, okay? And with what is happening right now with AI, you're talking about NVIDIA becoming almost $4 trillion market cap within a year because of this. And the amount of chips that they're going to be producing for every large company that are using these chips, the amount of electricity that they're going to be needing with these new chips, they're going to need, like it says in this article, it says like 8,000% more, right? This just going up from the NVIDIA's B200, the consumption of electricity, and remember, these companies are getting thousands. It's a 300% increase in power just across those GPUs, 300% increase. This is why Amazon and all of these companies are like, what are we going to do? Like, we got to invest right now. And guess what? Some of these people, look at a track record. You can see these people, they've been investing in small modular reactors and nuclear technology as early as 2013, 2015. Bill Gates, Microsoft was one of them, right? TerraPower. But another big name is probably going to surprise you, that the head of the AI front, right? And specifically a certain stock, and we're going to go over and talk about that. But I don't think people understand. You can't get this energy, this baseload energy, this baseload power you need. You can't get this from wind. You can't get this from solar. You can't get this from battery storage, anything like that. Okay, you're going to need to get this from nuclear. And it is a clean energy source too. These companies, they also have to have green energy. That's what they're going for, right? They care about their name. They can't just be using gas. They can't just be using oil, right? For energy, they want to use something clean. Nuclear energy is clean. And some of the big names in this are massive. And we're going to get into that. I want to show you another video. This is what we call this phase right now. And this is why I think there will be a pullback. And there's already been a slight one, that we're in this media attention phase in this sector. Now, this is not really the uranium sector, because these stocks, some of them did really well today. Uranium has had their pullback. Uranium prices go down, right? We can look at, I have all these stocks right here. You guys, in my Discord, there's a link for all of my stocks that you guys can like see through TradingView, right? And on here, like Lightbridge is up 24% again today, right? And it's in the fuel rod sector for nuclear reactors. But if you go and look at some uranium stocks, say UEC, Energy Fuels is kind of flat. UEC is down like 2 or 3%. It's not huge on the chart, but it looks very similar to the nuclear charts. All of these are kind of tracking together. A lot of these are tracking with the market. You look behind me, that is the entire stock market, and everything for the week is pretty much red. One of the only big players has been that big green thing. That's Tesla, which is up 22% for the week, right? Smashed earnings. If not, they would be red just with the other stocks, right? A lot of the big stocks, the big blocks are the big stocks. So a lot of this sector is so small, so a lot of it is still tracking with the market. This is UEC uranium stock, but we go to Lightbridge, you can see the charts look very similar because they're very, very small. Centrus Energy, same thing, is up maybe 1% today, near 1%. It's still tracking the exact same. These stocks track very, very similar, right? Very similar to a lot of other stocks. So when you're following these sectors, it's sometimes good to follow. There will be leaders sometimes these one like Lightbridge, because they're so speculative, $100 million market cap. It's actually less than that, isn't it? 94 right now, million. You're going to see massive moves in these stocks to the upside, but also the downside. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit later about how I think I'm going to play these and how I've already played them before. Because a lot of these, like I said, you got to track these companies. You got to track how they trade, because when they get news or when the sector's moving, some move faster than others. Some take a lot more time to move as well. But as far as this phase, we are in this phase, the media attention phase of this sector. And this applies to mostly right now nuclear energy stock. You could say uranium is in the same boat, but this is the type of stuff you're going to hear. This is Amazon getting into nuclear energy. Now listen to what they say, and I'll give you my take on it.
Developer companies that Amazon did invest in is X Energy, and the company's CEO, Clay Sell, is joining us now. Clay, it's great to speak with you here. I want to start on this funding round that Amazon was part of, really anchoring it at $500 million. What is the plan to use that money, and how will it impact your expansion?
And that's tiny money. $500 million for Amazon, that's like they're not being very smart. They need to be dumping way more money into this because guess what? All your AI, all the energy you're using, you're not going to get your targets. You're not going to get your funding. You're talking about ChatGPT. They're asking for like $10 trillion, right? 10 trillion they think is needed that they want because they think that they could literally with AI double the world's GDP, right? Collectively. They think that it can be a positive thing. Now, there's a lot of debate about that. Can that be good for people? AI has already helped a lot of people, right? It's made a lot of people's lives better. Will it hurt certain people? It could. But as far as these companies, the companies that we all use in everything we do, whether it's online, banking, transaction, all this, especially Amazon, AWS, the system that a lot of this stuff runs on, everything, banking systems, all these things, like they're not investing a lot of money yet compared to how much they're going to need to invest to get this stuff going. But some funds are starting to come into this and you're going to start to see this. Amazon is one of the big names recently, right?
Yeah, it was really important to have Amazon lead this round. So it's going to produce $500 million cash. And what we're going to do is primarily use that to do two things: complete the design of our standard plant, and then construct the first fuel facility that will manufacture the fuel that is used in our first and subsequent plants.
So remember, a lot of these companies, the HALEU fuel is very important. That's why we invest in Centrus Energy. And that's why the stock is now almost 100 bagger since, pretty much it came from $1 into 2016. And it also got near $1 in 2018. So not too long, right? Very rare for a 100 bagger status. And the potential, this is probably going to become 1,000 bagger, maybe even over the next couple of years from 2016, right? And you could kind of say 2017 because it was like $1.35. I think it hit in 2018. But 1,000 bagger, right? We're talking Bitcoin gains in a lot less shorter time, right? In a different sector, totally different. So we're talking, that's with Centrus Energy, right? But these other companies, TerraPower, they're X Energy, they're looking into being able to also produce some fuel. Right now, really the only name is Centrus Energy, which is LEU ticker. But they're not investing this round. They're not even investing as much as they should. I really think that it needs to be multi billions, especially from a company like this, because they gotta get this going now. Now, a lot of companies that we're going to talk about have already been doing this for a long time, right? These small modular reactors we've been talking about for multiple years on this channel. These are already starting to turn into 10 baggers, right? But long term, it's like, where can these go? And we're going to talk about all that. We're going to show you the potential for it. And also the reason why these stocks are nothing like those pump and dump fuel cell stocks, the battery stocks, a lot of the stuff that in the EV or EV revolution that they said back in 2020, those stocks are down 98%, right? And I'm going to show you exactly why those stocks are down and why they're nothing like this, because, this stuff, nuclear energy, it's not only clean, it's reliable, it's way cheaper, way cheaper. And you're going to be surprised how much cheaper it is. And it's way better for the environment. Okay. Way safer too. Way safer. So
this first design that we are completing and licensing now will be constructed in a collaboration with Dow Chemical in the state of Texas. And then that very same design will be used in subsequent plants with Amazon and others.
Clay, we've established this as an emerging technology, and SMRs have long been an attractive ambition here because of how nimble they're likely to be, how quickly they can scale, the cheaper cost. But the reality is we don't have one that's operational in the U.S. yet. Why do you think it's taken so long to get one off the ground?
Well, the nature of mega projects, it just takes time to get them designed into the marketplace. The bigger reason is we have not seen sufficient demand from actual customers that are prepared to build these plants.
And the thing is, you see how the AI spike boomed so quickly? We also have crypto. What does it take to mine crypto? A lot of electricity. Countries are banning crypto mining, especially in the East, in a lot of places, because it uses so much electricity. Guess where those billions and billions of dollars probably are going to start going into? Same thing with AI. These companies can't run their data centers without electricity. These company centers are utilizing most of the world's electricity now, and the grids are not prepared for this. So they're going to not only have to invest in these small modular reactors, large reactors, extending existing reactors, 3 Mile Island, bringing these back up. Also, the grid needs an investment. And depending how November next month goes, big changes could be coming. And this is what he's talking about. The main reason why is because we haven't seen a need for them just yet, right? We have other energy sources, but they don't come close to that clean 20% US baseload power that we have, literally in nuclear energy. But those GPUs that NVIDIA is producing, the $3 trillion market cap that was just basically made out of thin air and almost, in the past 12, 14 months, that all of the companies, Tesla, Meta, some $1 trillion companies, right? These big companies, Google, they're all using these in these new GPUs that they're going to have. They're going to continue to get better, and they're going to need more and more power. And they're saying it's going to be like 8,000% by like 2030 that they're going to need. So they're not only going to have to just dump tons of money in this sector, which means these stocks are going to go parabolic way beyond probably where they're valued, because they're not going to be turning a profit, majority of these. If the companies, though, can get into the fuel side, kind of like Centrus Energy, it has a way bigger upside than just selling a reactor. And some of these stocks that we're going to talk about are also going to be, they're not selling a nuclear reactor, they're selling energy, right? Cheap energy, clean energy. And that's why it's so attractive. Now the need is bigger than ever. You heard it here first. I really think these stocks, some of these could potentially come 10-bagger very quickly, even from these prices right now. And from inception, 100-bagger, you never know, maybe even more than that. But we're going to look at past stocks, kind of the dinosaurs that do nuclear, how long it took them, in a sense, to grow, and why this is going to be, especially with small modular reactors, a parabolic growth. Okay, in the US in 1969 to 79, the US and the world expanded hundreds and hundreds of reactors, multiple reactors coming on every single month, right? New reactors. This was when technology wasn't as good, things took longer. And now permitting is, with these small modular reactors, is a lot easier. They use less space. Governments, it's bipartisan support. They do waivers to get these things going. And guess what? As we said in the last video, they don't even need to build a new plant. They can take a coal plant that's retired and literally rejuvenate it and rebrand it and refabricate it into a nuclear plant. And small modular reactors, some of these reactors, these companies can have literally at a data station, and they are very safe. They don't melt down. They don't need as many people to run them, and they don't need as much space. And a lot of these companies want that. They want to stack them. Military can even use these small modular reactors. Disasters, when disasters happen, there's no power. They can bring in a very small reactor. I mean, this stuff sounds like science fiction, but they can utilize these they already do in aircraft carriers and submarines. I was in the military. We had these. We also have the potential for space travel. It's used in space travel because guess what? Solar's not too good in space. When dust gets on there, it's very dusty, things can rip that. And a nuclear powered craft, if you really want to get to Mars, and Elon is investing in this, then you're going to need nuclear power. It's a lot faster as well. These small modular reactors, and companies like Rolls-Royce and some of these companies we're going to talk about later, these reactors, they're doing that. And this money is just going to start to pile in. I really do believe,
And the big news from last week was not just Amazon saying, if someone else builds it, we will come buy the power. Amazon said we are prepared to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in the construction of these plants. That's the game changer, and that's what's really going to facilitate.
But it is a lot of money compared to the sector size, right? A lot of these companies, they're still very, very small. You have probably all of them together is smaller than Palantir, right? All the uranium companies almost combined are going to be smaller than like Palantir. One company and say like UEC owns more uranium held in barrels in value than per year Palantir's bringing in revenue, right? So, and overnight when the price of uranium goes up, and a lot of these things, these companies can turn a big profit. Same thing with these reactor companies. If they're getting to the fuel fabrication and can sell fuel, and the prices go up, and all of these companies they're gonna load up early on, and when they're doing these testings, they're gonna need more and more. These reactors early on take more fuel in the very beginning as well. So when all this happens, these companies, their bottom lines can go up big, very, very fast too. And when we're talking about uranium stocks, they're the leverage plays on the price of uranium. So if these companies do it right and they're in the fuel side, they can be leveraged to the fuel side and the demand. And because the demand is so much for this energy and this fuel, these companies can shock the world. Kind of like we were talking about earlier at PayPal, they can shock the world on earnings. And we've seen mining stocks and things like that are in the fuel side, become 1,000-baggers, 100,000% in a few years. So especially with the tiny few $1 million market cap, there are going to be stocks that run up big, and there's going to be stocks that are not going to get into production with their actual SMRs, right? And we're going to have to look at that. We're going to have to study it. But usually when the tide rises, a lot of these companies all rise together. That's what we've been seeing. Even a speculative company like, Lightbridge is up a bunch, right? It's not bringing in a profit. It's getting government grants, and it's the fuel fabrication, the rods, their new technology could be very good. And that's kind of where we're at right now with this.
This new build era.
So now you've got that demand picture in place, at least from some of these big tech companies. As you think about the larger future here, how much of that demand, specifically around SMRs, is expected to come from tech companies because of what they're building out with AI?
Well, a significant portion of the increased electricity demand in the United States for the next 25 years is going to come from AI. It could be as high as 10, 20%.
Yeah, the data is actually saying way higher than that. And I don't think he's looking into the fact of he's going based off of the current, the way I just showed you earlier, the current, energy used on right now on the NVIDIA GPUs. The ones a few years from now are going to be thousands of % more needed because they compute so much more, right? So the amount of megawatts that they're going to need, especially for these data centers, because when you have this AI computing all this, you also have to have like this data center, right? That can store all this information and run everything. So everything starts to ramp up and it becomes like it's like parabolic. We love using that word here, but things, what is it? Moore's law, right? These things are getting bigger and bigger each time, right? So NVIDIA sells all these to Meta, Tesla, all these companies. As time goes on, they're going to need new ones and new ones and new ones, and they're going to use so much more power, right? And these companies are going to have a lot of problems with the government if they are going to basically churn the entire, every state, every country like California's grid, very bad wildfires, things are heating up, everyone's out of electricity. That's not good, so small modular reactors are going to really help fix that, right? And they're not looking at this. They're not really looking out and kind of projecting it. It's going to be a lot more than that. They're saying 8,000+% potentially more power needed, right?
And so we anticipate a very significant portion of our demand to come from electricity for AI, but we also produce a very high temperature quality steam, which will be used by companies like Dow Chemical.
Yeah, real quick, you said whoever the company like Chevron buys up will 10x. Yeah, that's something that I've been watching because we're not just talking about the small modular reactor side, we're also talking about the fuel side, the HALEU, EU, and US, we really haven't been doing that for decades, right? We haven't had that. So this renaissance opens the doors for oil companies to do what they did in the 70s. They mined uranium. They started to really invest in that. And some of these companies are hedged with that as well. A lot of this stuff, out in Texas, there were 76 million pounds of uranium mined in the 70s. Eventually that led to overproduction, but there was a need for it. All these reactors were coming online. And yeah, if Chevron buys up these companies potentially, or you get bigger investments, some of these could go up from these small valuations. Some of the ones we're showing you is less than half a billion, right? They can go up significantly. We don't know where this could go, right? And some of these do have options out to 2027. So we'll look at how maybe I position myself. But what I said before is these are very volatile. They're not going to be making money. They could get government grants. They could be getting all this coming in. But it is still speculative, right? It's very needed, but there could be a big pullback. And I do think a lot of these stocks after a big run, depending on what happens with the market, they're going to pull back 50%. So I'm looking to, hedge in that way and maybe profit also if they drop. This is not just, hey, you can make 1,000% if they go up. It's like potentially on the way down on some of these too. There's going to be a lot of bad players coming into this that are more about just creating a name, pumping the stock up, and these CEOs are going to want to just basically, they don't even believe they'll ever get their reactor approved and get into production and actually produce electricity, right? So that's something we got to track too. When this amount of money comes in, the sectors, there are going to be stocks, some of them that are like in the past, Plug, FCEL, remember Blink, these type of stocks are down 98%. All these YouTubers pumped these stocks up during that run because they thought there was going to be this big need for energy, but there's government regulations they faced. They also faced problems raising financing. You don't need all those things. And that energy, a lot of it, depending on storage, it's not as good as baseload power like nuclear energy. It's just not. And those companies, a lot of the stuff was too speculative. This stuff, nuclear energy, it is real and it works. These reactors, some of them have been extended out, right? And we're talking about technologies still from the 60s, right? This stuff works. It's clean. You've like all the people watching this, you probably have used a lot of your power over the years and it was nuclear, whether you're traveling, wherever you're going. But this really is the future. And because that amount of money investment is coming in, that's why I think that these stocks, even if they're not going to get into production of electricity, they could still see a massive move. And we're really early on in this media phase. The news is just talking about it, right? I've been talking about it for multiple years. A lot of people thought it was a pipe dream, but now that you have the demand there, big demand, because guess what? If they don't have energy, these companies and all the AI that basically NVIDIA's valuations overnight, these companies won't be able to buy these new GPUs. You know, Tesla won't be able to run their autonomous robots. They won't be able to run their autonomous taxis. These companies won't be able to use their AI computing, Palantir. So these companies are all potentially going to want to start investing in nuclear. And we're just now getting started. The biggest companies are starting usually first. That's usually what you see because they have a little extra money and they have more at risk. You know, Amazon, AWS, they need energy. They are in states sometimes that have issues with power, right? Power prices have gone up, skyrocketed. This will bring them down, right? So that's why they're investing, and that's why I want to invest and have been, right?
Other petrochemical and industrial manufacturers to help decarbonize their operations. The interesting thing about X Energy, we have a wide array of functionality, which makes us attractive to both electricity consumers and steam users.
Clay, Akiko had mentioned the funding from the DOE. How concerned are you about the potential that funding could dry up depending on who enters the White House come November?
I think nuclear power is one of the most...
It's bipartisan support. The thing is, depending either side, because remember, when someone comes into the White House to bring 1,000 people in, right? Either side, they're going to be hearing the same thing. Nuclear is needed. That's why we're in this nuclear energy renaissance. One side particular is going to be way more pro-US nuclear, right? Especially with uranium mining, the production, and also not just nuclear. There also is the fuel side, and then you also have oil, the oil refining side. So that's another kind of sector I've been looking into and kind of starting to hedge too. If it looks like there's going to be like a certain change in the White House, if it's kind of the same people in there, it doesn't mean it's going to be bearish. I really don't think the market could pull back if the market's pricing in, a certain win to the right. But if we don't, I'm looking at big opportunities. And that's usually when the greatest wealth is made, when there's a big overreaction. Stocks like this drop 50, 60%, option price, like the IV's up, option prices, people are dumping them. When that happened last year with Centrus Energy, some of those options became up 3,000%, right? In a very short amount of time. The profits from those, because of this flash crash, tied to this little tiny fuel sector, right? So, and that's kind of what he's getting at.
Bipartisan issues in Washington, D.C. Let me give you an example. Last week at the Amazon announcement of their investment in us and Energy Northwest, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican governor of Virginia, was on the stage with Jennifer Granholm and 2 Democratic senators from the state of Virginia. It has deep bipartisan support. I think we are uniquely in a good position, no matter who wins the election, to continue to have strong support and funding support and policy support going forward.
And Clay, you were the Secretary of Energy under the Bush administration. I just want to get your thoughts on...
Yeah, this is another thing. And then the previous CEO of Centrus was also Secretary of Energy under the Biden and Obama administration, right? The Obama administration particularly. And now there's a new CEO. He's from Urano, from Centrus Energy, the stock LEU. But yeah, they know what they're talking about. He's been in Washington, obviously. He's been in there for quite a while, actually. So yeah, they know that you have to have energy. You have to have nuclear energy, and it's going to be supported from both sides regardless. And that's my take on it. If there's a pullback though, it's just an opportunity, I think, for me to set some more plays up, right? And yeah, Blink and Plug, all those traded well, right? They ran up, even though a lot of people knew like that was not going to play out. A lot of those speculative things, were not going to play out. But there was also a side, people made more money, I think, on getting puts when those are at $300, like at the very top, and riding, long-term out, riding it down. You don't even have to short the stock. So there's probably going to be names that I will go get heavy on puts on these stocks if they get way too overvalued, not just riding them up, but also there's going to be some bad players coming into this whenever there's money. But the ones I'm going to show you today is pretty much everything. I think we're going to do more research on these. Some of them, like I said, I've been following for multiple years. Some have contacted me to get in angel investing. We're like literally $1, a share round. So early on, and we'll talk about that. And these people, like, they're doctors, right? They're not really investors. A lot of these, that's the cool thing about this. A lot of the people on board are actually nuclear physicists and doctors, right? They actually want to create something really awesome, like a small modular reactor that can power a small town with, little bitty pellets that are, or a ball that's literally of triso fuel that can't melt down. Like, that's really cool and really helping, indigenous tribes get electricity, and it's clean, it's portable. It's stuff you'd see in like Star Wars, right? That's really where the future of this can go,
The energy sector and the impact of fiscal on that sector moving forward. There was this huge debate about whether energy would be under pressure under the Biden administration. It's actually continued to hit new highs. What would you tell investors about how this upcoming election could impact the energy trade regardless of who wins?
Well, I think, for the last 4 years, we've hit record highs in traditional energy production here in the United States. I mean, oil and gas production is at an
Yeah, but not refining. In fact, it's like, he's wrong on that though. Cause like I said, if say like Trump comes in, there's probably going to see a lot of push to, for US, for like refining specifically, right? Not just like oil production, more drilling probably too. Excuse me. But yeah, the fact that the US, my big thing is, that's why I'm playing this, is the US nuclear energy renaissance. And with that comes also a big push in particular certain sectors in oil, certain things in oil refining. And yeah, a lot of this uranium production, nuclear energy production, a lot of these jobs are going to be created. It's probably going to be a bipartisan support, but one side potentially might be more bullish. And a lot of these people, kind of have the same idea, I think, but it's going to happen regardless, unless you don't want energy. Because if you don't, the lights are eventually going to go out in first world countries, if you don't. And other countries have already seen this. Germany, they've had to backtrack a lot of stuff, shutting down nuclear plants, having wind, literally thinking wind, which isn't reliable, is going to be able to recharge all these electric vehicles that they love. No, definitely not. Wind won't do it, right? And obviously when it's cold, the same thing when you're trying to get solar and, in the winter and stuff, those clouds, it's not going to be as good. Nuclear energy, always working, whether in a hurricane, tornadoes, it's safe. And that's what's great about these new ones, new small modular reactors, So
all-time high in the United States, which is a little different, a little contrary to the narrative that's typically around the Biden administration. I think either way, no matter who wins, we're going to continue to see strong fundamentals in traditional energy and increasingly strong fundamentals in clean 24/7 nuclear power.
Finally, Clay, the argument against nuclear power for many years has been not just the cost, but the waste that comes from it. Now you're starting to see this turn towards nuclear energy.
The waste is not even bad. What these people don't understand is the only thing you hear is 3 Mile Island. The only thing you hear is Fukushima. The only thing you heard was there in Ukraine. You heard about the Chernobyl incident, right? That's what you hear. You don't hear that the entire 70-year supply of nuclear waste from the US fits in a football field that's like less than 18 meters deep. That's all, right? You don't hear that the byproduct with the steam, it's not toxic. You could breathe that. The water coming out, the steam from the cool reactors, goes back into the ecosystem. And there's really big fish at the nuclear power plants. And, the steam areas, there's catfish usually the size of men, right? It's not from the nuclear energy. It's just the hot water. It kind of helps the ecosystem, right? Coming out of there. Now, you have this narrative that it's so bad and so dirty, but it's not. And in fact, they usually put the fuel is stored literally in stainless steel, massive containers that are safe, that could be there for thousands and thousands of years inside of a mountain, right? Safe. And that's what people normally hear, that it's, Chernobyl, it's dangerous, all this, but it's not. And hopefully he knows this. I have not watched this yet. I saw the first headline. I was like, we got to do this so I can do it in real time with you guys, show you guys that this is not like pre-scripted. This is live. This is my thoughts. And this is what, I've been studying for the past 4 years in this sector, right?
Again, largely because the actual energy that's generated is virtually clean, right? When you talk about emissions actually emitted. But help me understand how SMRs are different than traditional nuclear reactors in terms of waste that comes from it, because that.
Now, it depends. TerraPower, there's different types of reactors. Saltwater reactors, all different types, right? There's some reactors that are meltdown proof, and the small modular reactors, and you can literally, some of them recycle majority of the fuel, right? TerraPower. Majority of the fuel you can literally recycle and reuse as energy. Other older reactors, depending what it is, you might have to recycle majority of that. But there is a market for that as well. BWXT, I think one of the stocks we follow, they deal with that as well. Centrus Energy, obviously, but let's see what he has to say, the DOE former secretary, right?
Seems to be still a big concern, at least for those who are watching this space, to say, how clean is this really?
We still produce nuclear waste. We produce less of it per megawatt day of power that is produced, but we still produce nuclear waste. But let me put that into context. For 70 years, we've had nuclear power in the
Is he going to say exactly what I say? No, I think I got this originally, the 70 years thing. Well, because I study nuclear energy for the past 4 years, right? I think the first person I ever heard this, I think it was was it John Borshoff, who was the CEO of the company Paladin that became 100,000 bagger, 100,000%, right? I think he said it maybe years ago in an interview, but let's see if he says it.
United States. All of the nuclear waste that's been generated could be stored in a building the size of a super Walmart. And we know where every molecule of that waste is. We know that it is contained.
Super
we know
Walmart.
that it is safe from the public and from the environment and will be for generations to come.
What I said is Elon should take the nuclear waste, which they could, right, and put it on a rocket, go out in the middle on a floating barge in the middle of the Pacific near the trench. I've dived into the trench before, by the way. Jumped off my ship in the Coast Guard, went into the trench, and swam a mile away from my ship because I was a rescue swimmer. It was really fun. But anyways, should have the barge there, shoot it off. So if there's anything that goes wrong, it's going to be there. Unfortunate if it happened, but it's very unlikely. Elon running it, right? You shoot it off into space, one-way trip, right? With the payload out of orbit and out into space, right? As far away from Earth as possible. And there's not much. He's saying a super Walmart, super center. It's actually less than that from the NEI. I think is actually the NEI was the one that actually gave that statistic. And they track, all of it has to be tracked. And that's just US, right? But US is the leader. They use the most, right? Most reactors was over 93, and there's more, I think, coming up. But yeah, it's funny he says a super Walmart, right?
But that's not a great waste story. Compare that to fossil fuels, compare that to the coal industry, even compare that to the end of life. What are you going to do with solar panels once they end their life?
It's bad. Solar panels, not only the fact of creating them, but also it's very dirty. Coal plants, what Germany's used, very dirty. Like I said, we're getting into this media phase, and this has been the past, we're starting to hear more and more investors hear about it. People are looking to get into it. This is another thing.
A little bit about nuclear power and technology, or big tech getting involved in it. Nuclear power has sort of gotten back into the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a really big trade over the last year, and it comes because we're in a little bit of a bind.
She's been covering actually nuclear energy for a while. She's pretty cool. She's going to kind of touch on, I didn't watch this whole thing, but I kind of wanted to hear what she had to say. I've been listening. I know what she's probably going to say because she's been following the nuclear sector for at least 4+ years now since I've been following it and talking about it. So let's see what she has to say and kind of segue off of what I think is going to be what he was saying, former secretary of the DOE.
Because of AI's energy demands, they've made these commitments to transition to zero emissions, and now they all need more power than anyone imagined to compete in the AI race. By 2026, global electricity use from data centers is expected to double, consuming the same amount of power as...
Brought to you by ChatGPT. I'm sure they compiled that. I'm waiting for an analyst, on TV to be to read the ChatGPT prompt or something. Oh man, it's funny. You see on YouTube a lot. I've actually seen a lot of these titles on YouTube already. They left the GPT prompt in there. It was kind of funny. I've seen from big studios already using it. It's funny.
Japan, according to the IEA. So the solution is a nuclear power. It can generate electricity without any pollution, but it's expensive to get a plant up and running. Some have also faced project delays and ballooning costs. But with big tech buying the power, even if it's at a higher price, that could jumpstart new builds. Google's deal with Kairos Power is just the latest example. We also had Microsoft teaming up with Constellation Energy to bring 3 Mile Island back online, while Amazon...
Yeah, isn't that something who would have ever thought 3 Mile Island coming back online? This has been such a wild ride. We had a Fukushima, type event in a sense in Chernobyl again with this war in 2022. So a lot of the stocks related to nuclear were up and down. People were worried, but it showed how powerful and strong in a sense and safe nuclear was. Europe, this building's getting the world's largest in Europe. The reactor there in Ukraine was getting hit with rockets. Even the side where they stored the fuel, right? And it still didn't melt down. And that kind of showed people, I think, too, okay, we're not gonna have rockets in the United States getting hit these nuclear power plants. So that kind of really, I think, is a positive thing that was initially a black swan event for a lot of the sector, right?
Bought a data center from Talon Energy that's powered by the Susquehanna nuclear power.
I mean, these are the biggest names in the world, right? And in a moment, I'm going to be talking about another specific company, and you won't believe who some of the board members are for these companies. Like I said, tip of the spear when it comes to AI.
Plant. Prominent tech players are also backing nuclear. Both Bill Gates and Sam Altman are chairman of.
There he is, Sam Altman. So Oklo, and he's been a chairman, I believe, since, and we'll go through this. I've got presentations and stuff. I think it was since 2015. So, and Bill Gates has been talking about nuclear power with TerraPower, right, for a long time. You know, Jeff Bezos. These are things we've covered in the past. If you've been on the channel, all of these multi-billionaires. Elon Musk is a major supporter of nuclear energy. Obviously, Peter, early PayPal, right, investor, and then the giant elephant in the room, Nvidia, right? They're going to probably, I think, be a big player, right? Because this company will get destroyed long term if all the big companies that are buying up their GPUs, if countries have bigger regulations on these AI companies or tech, and they can't use the energy, they're going to want to use their own energy and throw it into the power grid, right? It's going to be really good for them. The government's going to love them if they can do that. So I think these $3 trillion, $4 trillion companies, a lot of these $1 trillion companies are going to be wanting to invest more and more in nuclear. And it's a lot more than what we've just seen from Amazon, $500 million. That's chump change. That's tiny. It's going to need to be more. And when that happens, these stocks can go parabolic when you start to get an overreaction from hedge funds. And we're talking about ETFs buying them up. And we're still in this early phase. Some of these have a market cap of $500 million. And like I said,
nuclear companies. Jeff Bezos has funded a fusion company, and NVIDIA, as Jensen Huang has called nuclear a, quote, integral part of the AI future. Is the regular...
And of course, you see this. They don't play Elon Musk up there, but Elon Musk has been talking about nuclear longer than even Bezos, longer than Peter. Sam Altman, actually, that was one that got me because he does, ChatGPT. He could become, depending on what ChatGPT does, he could become one of the first, one of the richest guys in the world, one of the first trillionaires too. I think Elon Musk will get there before him, but really what they're saying with ChatGPT and the advancements, they kind of got a leap on everyone. The fact that they're a for-profit company now, a little, like, it's annoying that they did that. A lot of people don't like it, but as far as like where things are going, he is a big supporter. So that is positive for the sector, right?
Regulatory hurdle lessening then? Is the not in my backyard pushback lessening? So there are two factors there. There's first the not in my backyard, the NIMBYism, and then there's the regulatory piece. On the NIMBY front first, nuclear power support for nuclear power is now at the highest level in more than a decade. A lot of that is coming from millennials and Gen Z. Gen Z especially, you look on TikTok and Instagram, and there's a lot of prominent backers.
That's what I was saying, guys. Gen Z, if you're an old dinosaur, right, you need to look. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what you were buying. It doesn't matter. It really does matter what the market wants, right? People thought Facebook and all that was old and it was dinosaur, right? But Facebook had Instagram. Instagram has Gen Z and Gen Alpha and even TikTok, right? These things are going to continue to be used, right? Instagram. And that's why Meta is now at almost $600 and hit $600. Same thing with just because the past might have hated nuclear power, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like they're starting to hear these things. They can get the data. They can ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to probably tell them, yes, nuclear energy is safe. The likelihoods of a meltdown, you have a bigger likelihood of probably getting, hit by a meteor, right? Like especially in the US, it's a lot safer, right? And a lot of these issues were because of human error and because like Fukushima wouldn't have happened likely if they had the diesel generators were actually maintained properly. They could have pumped water in there and there wouldn't have been a meltdown, right? So, and when it's an act of God, right? You don't have like, if something like that happens, then obviously, but that's one in, a billion, right? Or even more. But yeah, she's totally right about that. That it's not about what I want, what you want. The same thing. When I make videos on here, a lot of YouTubers, people making content, they make content for what people want to watch. People obviously want to watch this type of stuff. You guys are tuning in on your Friday night, but potentially it might lead you to make an investment in something, doing your own research, which we're doing right now, to do really well in the future, because we're in the first innings of this. These market caps aren't like Palantir. They're not at $100 billion yet. These market caps are very small. Some of them are sub 1 billion, meaning they could become massive runners in the future. And we don't even know what the future is going to be like with this advancement in AI so fast. And the telltale signs should tell you NVIDIA going up to almost $4 trillion market cap this fast. That should tell you the amount of money coming into this and the amount of money that's going to be going into the future, so that can actually play out. So they can continue to make these GPUs to advance AI, advance robotics, advance autonomy. That's really where it's at. And you can't get there. You can't get your Bitcoin. You can't get your $100,000 Bitcoin, all you Bitcoin investors, or million, whatever you want to say, your crypto. You can't get that without nuclear energy advancing. If not, the grid is not going to hold up. If not, you can't charge your electric vehicles around the world and continue to grow in EVs, right? And wean off, like in Europe, wanting to wean off of electricity or of fuel powered cars by 2030, 100%, right? You can't do that without nuclear. That's why England has been investing in nuclear plants, right? And continuing and extending lives. So that's where we're at.
Because they don't have necessarily the same association of what can happen with a meltdown. On the regulatory front, that still is a question because these SMRs, the future, the small modular reactors, they still have to get those permits from the NRC. Kairos has a demonstration project they're building in Tennessee, but not the full-scale project yet.
And I'm going to show you the competition, right? I'm going to show you a chart that shows all the companies that are getting those licenses, that are submitting them to the NRC, and the fact that maybe, and that's why I've invested in Centrus Energy, and that's kind of why Centrus Energy has always been there. You know, you kind of want to get the person that's selling them the fuel too, because then you're one step ahead of everyone, right? But a lot of these companies, they're also trying to the fuel side, right? A lot of these companies want to jump in, and as you guys said earlier, was it Marty or one of y'all said, whichever oil company starts to buy these companies up or start investing in it, the big oil, they're going to get back into uranium production. They're going to get into nuclear energy production, 1,000%. I guarantee it. We look at the 70s. Why? You can look at the past. When the price of uranium went up 700% and was beating oil, big oil mined uranium in Texas. When the U.S. needed it for national security, and the time, this nuclear energy renaissance, we've never seen anything like it. The amount of energy we needed then was nothing compared to what we need now for just an Amazon data center. The energy we need we're not going to make it unless we do it right now. And a lot of these companies have been already investing in nuclear energy and small modular reactors, the technology. That's why some of them are farther advanced. They've been doing it since 2015. Sam from ChatGPT has been on the board. He's been there since 2015, right? Early. And this was very, very early, before a lot of these people. So it is interesting that the one of the leaders in AI, you know, and who you're really hearing everything about, is the biggest supporter of nuclear energy. And we'll go over the company specifically, Oklo, right? So.
And then also these SMRs, like a proof of concept project, or more than that? It's more than that. So they're building it and the NRC approved it. Then the NRC has approved TerraPower, that's Bill Gates' companies, their construction permit, but not their nuclear reactor permit yet. So this is a long timeline, you know.
And it's just a process. And the thing is, I think certain administrations will be a lot more positive and maybe make things a lot easier. Elon Musk has already said, you know, he's wanting to streamline. I mean, there's a lot of talk, right? We don't know what's true, but we as investors, we don't need to care about the politics. We need to just be able to take away emotions, take away politics, find out how to make money and invest in what's going to make the most. And if something changes, you got to adapt. You got to pivot. If there's a new administration that doesn't support certain things, you got to adapt. And maybe there's money to be made on the downside in some of these, but I really do think bipartisan support, it's gonna do well, you know.
2030 at the earliest.
You've got AI fueling the need for more power, but you've also got electric vehicles, which certainly are going to be a part of the future, and to rely.
We talked about that earlier. EVs, cryptocurrency. Do you understand how much power these need? Like the battery storage, even these massive battery storage plants in China, right? Massive, is bigger than Tesla factories, right? The grid. The amount of grid with AI now, those factories won't even last like a few hours, right? These backup grids, they won't even last a few hours with AI pushing that much energy usage, with the cryptocurrency mining, and then obviously just the billions of people, say like in China, right? You're not even going to be able to scratch the surface of it with a battery powered, right? A battery backup if something happens. You have to have nuclear. It's baseload. It's, you know, the thing is that this is the only way. It really is. You can't do it with any other thing. It's got to be nuclear. Doesn't matter like what people think. This is the only way to get where these companies want to get to with AI and crypto mining and everything. Like if they want to see this stuff go to the future and progress, then you have to do nuclear. You have to. And we should have been doing this a long time before this, because it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of hard work, but the money's going to start to come in. It's going to start to flow, and the stocks will become overvalued eventually, but they are nothing yet compared to where I think they're about to be going to.
On electric power to power, let's say it's a third of the auto fleet in this country eventually. That's going to take a lot.
And Bitcoin mining, by the way.
And Bitcoin mining.
And also reshoring. I mean, data centers are the latest and kind of the grabbiest headline in terms of...
It's the biggest. The data centers, like people don't understand how much electricity this stuff uses. I was just showing you guys earlier. It's like every time they go up to a new GPU, it uses like 300% more, like the new NVIDIA GPU. And they have hundreds and thousands of these, and they're going to just continue to upgrade as the technology progresses. And every company, all the big companies, they're fighting over these GPUs from NVIDIA, right? They're fighting over them because they want to be at the forefront of this AI boom, because they add trillions and trillions of dollar market cap to their companies when they do, right? And these companies, it's a small amount of money compared to their market cap, what they should invest in all these different nuclear companies. There's not many. There really isn't many. It's not like a gold company, right? It's not like a gold mining stock and there's thousands, 5,000, 3,000, right? This is way different. There's not many. And most of these companies, like they might not even get the chance because they could be bought out really quickly by other companies. So like you're going to see a lot of probably M&As, and it's probably going to be like kind of like the way we have the utilities in the US already, some of the big players, and then, they merge and get bought out, or the government has to come in. And it's like, that's really where the future is with this.
Power consumption, but it was already growing. And remember, utilities forecast their load growth, their facilities, a decade in advance. And now all of a sudden, it's kind of every single day there's a new forecast of just how much power AI is going to use. And so that's why these companies are now going directly to some of the...
Yeah, Marty, you said your electric bill keeps going up. Same here, 60% in 1 year up. We're on the West Coast USA, 60%. And over here, that's because they need nuclear power. A lot of this was due to wildfire. $1 billion needing to go to wildfire research, whatever that is. But the power they use now is literally majority of the power is all from the dams and water, right? So hydro. So nuclear would really cut the cost down. It's one of the cheapest, and it's and because on the West Coast, a lot of massive data centers are starting to pop up, especially with AI too. You got the same thing happening. But what this next thing we're about to talk about is gonna. We got one more, and this is where it segues into the stocks, right? Like I said, we're in the media attention phase. You're starting to hear people talk about it, and there are going to be pullbacks in some of the stocks. So we got to be covering this. We got to find the best ones, right? We got to find out who's real, who's really has the permits, who's been doing this the longest, even during the downturn when there was little funding, who really believes in this. And those are usually the companies that are going to do well.
And this is all about the resources we need for all those nuclear plants, meaning uranium.
So this is Erin Gibbs, Chief Investment Officer at Main Street Assets Management. What she's saying is about uranium and nuclear is 100% correct, and I'll tell you why.
That's how I'm playing the many headlines have been hitting about new nuclear programs coming on.
All right, and you have two picks for us to play this space. We had somebody else giving us some under-the-radar energy plays, but yours is right on the nose today. One of them is an ETF, the Global X Uranium ETF, ticker URA. The other one's a Uranium Miners ETF, URN. I do have to say, though, both of them are underperforming the market year to date. The last one's actually in the red, or actually just fractionally higher now, maybe off that news.
Yeah, and I don't like ETFs as much. I like to make my own ETF. And one of the things with this, start to see this with the nuclear sector, these nuclear energy stocks, is we have a lot of these ETFs will come in, they'll buy up, and sometimes they're not a pure play. Sometimes they're not just pure uranium, right? And also, uranium stocks are leveraged prices on the price of uranium, right? So depending how these are ran, sometimes I don't like some of the people involved in some certain ETFs right out there. You got to do the research. And a lot of times, like I said, it's better. And this is an investment advice, but just trusting an ETF, that's why it might underperform when some of the stocks are up hundreds of %. You got to do your own research. Okay. Just an ETF doesn't mean, but with the nuclear side, you're going to see a lot more ETFs pop up. And when they buy these cap stocks, the stock doesn't always mean the ETF's going to jump up, right?
What do you?
Yeah, I'm really humbled by who's followed me on this channel. This is a guy, disabled veteran. I've done a lot of cool stuff, right, in my life, but I've always been at this level, right? I've always been at the tip of the spear in a sense on ground level and a lot of the stuff. I think that sometimes helps me in my research for stocks. Starting off with mining stocks back in 2006 in the military. But I've had, big stuff or follow me. I've had people that have docs and speak to me about it, and people who are hedge fund managers. So you never know who's watching. So, hopefully they agree and they tell me this, but it is very humbling. And that just tells you guys are doing research right now. You guys could be out drinking and partying, but obviously you care about your future. You care about clean energy. And I care about that too. And I think this is just something it's really fun to kind of track. It's nice that you're getting this media attention phase as well. More people are starting to realize that nuclear energy is clean energy, and it's guaranteed it's going to be needed. As a lot of the people that have talked about this for years, if you don't, the lights are going to go out. You can't have you can't have EVs, you can't have, all the growth that you want, crypto mining without nuclear power worldwide. And it's got to be, and it's going to be invested really fast. Like the investment money coming in is going to have to be really fast, because these things do take some time. There has to be studies. There has to be obviously permitting going down. There has to be tests, and they have to prove to the government, get the license. But a lot of these companies are already advanced. They're already in a certain pipeline. They're already through a lot of the early stage stuff, and some of them aren't. So we gotta look into that.
As a catalyst to move these names higher, because I feel like all year long we've been talking about the increased need for energy, the power data centers, and just the whole AI trade.
And the great thing is, I was talking about this in March of 2020, in April of 2020, when uranium stocks all combined were like less than now the biggest uranium stock, pretty much market cap wise, every single one of them, even the big producers you could add up, very tiny, right? No one cared back then. Now you're starting to get a lot of people seeing it, right? A lot of people's eyes are on it.
Right. So a few things that are going to push these stocks up on a longer term trend and really help with the relative performance is, a lot of it is still about China demand. China's a little ahead of us when it comes to building those nuclear reactors. As your previous guest mentioned, we were talking 3 to 5 years before these new Microsoft, Google centers will be up and running, whereas China's already building them and has that need. So,
and it's not just building, it's restarts in the US, and here's the other thing. This is not on most of their radars, the hedge funds probably. I don't even know if she's going to say it, but it's turning coal plants, retired plants, into nuclear plants a lot faster with already licensed, reactors, already licensed, it's not just small modular reactors. It's actually licensed, ready to go. Right. So that's something that in the US we could do that isn't going to take 3 years, restarting old ones that are closed down, like Diablo Canyon in California, right? Restarting things, then extending the ones we already have that aren't going to go down in a year, 2 years, 3 years. And then Japan's the leader of all this. It's not just China building new ones. Japan is restarting all the ones from Fukushima. There's like one restarting pretty much has been like average every single pretty much month since the last 2 years, right? 2 or 3 years we've been covering it. There's been multiple ones restarted, right? On average in Japan. And these are some that you never thought would restart, right? And this is because for the most part, these are very safe. And these the meltdown wouldn't have happened if they had maintained their diesel generators. I mean, it's just plain and simple like that. And it's sad that happened in Japan, of all places. They're usually the most, attention to detail, engineers and stuff. So it's like, being an engineer myself, it was really kind of an odd thing that this happened, right? Especially to such good people, right? Japan, very clean, they do care. And yeah, it's going to be a big thing having these restarts happen. The new reactors, hundreds of reactors coming up in China, right? More than the US has right now going live, going to be hundreds. So that's big.
These miners, their customers are both US based, it's Europe as well as China. And so that China growth is part of what's already helping them for today within the next year. Another thing is that we're seeing the spot prices of uranium stabilize. And so we're looking at just about a 6% growth just on the futures, or 6% increase just on the futures market, let alone the additional production. So there is some volatility just within the pure price of uranium. Both of these are well diversified ETFs where you have the major miners from Kazakhstan, from Canada, Australia, and so on. So it's somewhat based off the price of uranium, but also who the customers are.
So yeah, the thing about that is the spot price of uranium, we tracked it, right? We would track it since it was $20 in 2020. And one of the big things with that is it's an opaque market. When you see the spot price, there's already things going on. It's by the time you probably see a price, it's literally traded. It's a spot market, right? So there's people buying and selling, sometimes for little profit. Sometimes it could be a company that's held uranium since the $30 or $40 range, right? When we were talking about it back in $20, some companies were buying up uranium stocks were, right? So you have that, but then you also have the long-term market. It's totally different, right? these are where utilities might be coming in to the spot market, but they also have long-term contracting. So a lot of this during the last uranium bull market, 2006, 2005, 2006, you had the long-term price, long-term contracting, hundreds of millions of pounds. And that's kind of what we have coming right now. Hundreds of millions starting to pop up, where that type of contracting is going to be happening over the next 12 months. And so the price of uranium is going to go up. And then a lot of these companies are going to also need LEU, HALEU. So companies like Centrus Energy is making them. Now, a lot of these reactors on this chart here, I wanted to show you guys, TerraPower, HALEU, Natrium reactor, right? GEH Prism, HALEU. Oklo, who we're going to talk about a little bit, HALEU. Advanced Reactor Concepts uses HALEU. These are all sodium cooled, so liquid metal cooled fast reactors, and LMFR. These are all non-light water reactors. Then you got something like X Energy. This is a high temperature gas cooled reactor, right? This uses HALEU as well. All of these, MIT's reactor, StarCore, HALEU. So HALEU is going to be needed. Right now it's Centrus Energy who can produce it, US DOE. So that's why I've invested in them. They literally a monopoly pretty much at the moment. And they're a descendant of the Manhattan Project. And the stock already recently became a 100 bagger, right? We talked about, and I think it'll become a 1,000 bagger. But we also want to look at this market cap is still very tiny, right? 1.2 million or billion. So if it goes up to 10 billion and they're bringing in multi-billion dollars a year, it's very like that type of valuation, especially with expansion, the amount of money is coming in the sector, speculation. You could see this type of, with all these companies needing HALEU, you could see a big investment overshoot, right? But 9 out of the 10 reactors that are selected by the Department of Energy's Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program, they all use HALEU fuel, which is going to be very safe, right? A lot of these reactors very safe. And this chart that I'm showing you guys was a couple years ago. There's way more now. Now this data isn't always out there for everyone to see, but we don't have to know every single one. We don't have to know all that because most of these are not publicly traded. So, there is competition, but a lot of these you have to be an angel investor, private investor. A couple of these have contacted me in angel rounds before one of these companies actually ended up listing, right? And we're going to talk about that. And it's still pretty low market cap, but I did not get in the early round. And now that it's obviously a public company, I'm still interested. When this was going on, it was like 2022 and there was black swans, right? We had nuclear energy black swans. So it was not the time to necessarily get in right away for me because I was trading the market, the nuclear energy market. Centrus Energy went down to $17. That's now recently hit 100. And I was buying that up on that way down from like the 20s and in that area, right? So it's been quite the ride, right? But I was buying Centrus Energy up when it was 4. But the thing is that HALEU is really, really going to be the future, I think, for a lot of these reactors. So that's really what I want to cover. A lot of these reactors that are the small modular reactors, especially using this HALEU, right? So Centrus Energy, one of the only ones, not much competition, but there will be more and more as time goes on, more companies actually going to be trying to produce the fuel part as well. And we just heard earlier from that, right? With TerraPower, a lot of them are going to also want to recycle potentially with these LMFRs. I think they're wanting to also be able to recycle this fuel and reuse it, basically in the same reactors, which is kind of cool. So the next thing, we can get deep into HALEU, but we've already spent like 2.5 hours. So I was going to go into it. Basically, there's 3 different types: HALEU, and then you got LEU, and then you got like the higher end, which is like going to be used in your reactors in the nuclear aircraft carriers and the Department of Defense, basically, right? So, but HALEU, most of these reactors are going to be using HALEU, right? And they're a lot safer, and these also can pretty much the footprint for these is a lot smaller. I think the entire process of getting one of these built a lot faster. But remember, in the 70s, 69 to 79, we built a ton, right? I think it was like almost every few months there was a new one coming up online, right? In the US. So you have a big opportunity here, right? So one of the first ones I'll go over. So Oklo, and this company is pretty interesting, right? And this is the one that we were talking about earlier. We'll go down here. I think they have it on this, do they? So yeah, Sam Altman ChatGPT, OpenAI, right? OpenAI, the forefront of this AI revolution. One of the reasons why, we have a almost $4 trillion market cap for NVIDIA alone. You got this company, right? Was going to be for, it's now for profit, was going to be nonprofit, but yeah, this company, I can see the reasons why. But Sam Altman, and he's been on it since like 2015. So like these people knew back then that there was going to be a mega energy consumption, and they knew that the only way was nuclear. Like 2015, right? This is like coming up on almost a decade, right? And these things do take time, but they've been supporters of this already, right? And these are people from backgrounds not only there, but also in oil and gas, just the utilities. You got some of the richest people in the world supporting this, the DOD. And so this goes across pretty much every sector, right? But with Oklo, one of the things that I found interesting, and we might as well bring up the chart, right? So a lot of these have ran, right? So Oklo is up 6% today already. And just from September, when Amazon came into this, so this dropped, right? Just in September, this thing is already up almost 300% at 322. It's pulled back from that point, but the market cap here is still only today 2.2 billion, trillion, yeah, 2.2 billion, right? And in these companies, I'm starting to like where the way they're trading, because I'm really thinking that if it continues this way, and the only thing is I usually will start to play a company like this in the options market, but a lot of these have already ran, right? But I think with like Centrus Energy, you've had a little bit of a pullback, right? All of these are pretty much tracking the same. And I think because elections coming up, Lightbridge is one of the ones that dropped, is way more volatile, and it's because of the market cap, right? You're starting to get some probably pretty big players, day traders starting to come into this. But as you can see on this list, these are all the players pretty much public, whether it's in small modular reactors, or if it's in the fuel side like Centrus Energy, or if it's in the utility like Duke Energy. They've all rode the same thing. Now the other thing is we've had a pretty, this week's been a pullback in the entire market, right? So if we look at the entire market this week, it's pretty much been the same, right? Since the peak. This might look like a small drop in the big scheme of things, but it's because now the companies that make up this, they're multi-trillion-dollar market caps, right? They hold a big weight, and some of them have been down this week. Behind me, you can see pretty much everything. Most of the big stuff's down. So a lot of stuff is kind of being yoked together. We've been seeing, right? All these pretty much stocks have been yoked together. It's bullish news for the sector, but have they overreacted a little bit? Potentially. Because I mean, a lot of these have ran up very, very fast, and people are starting to take some profits. The market itself was one of the reasons, but they are still very cheap. Just like a lot of you are already saying right now, they're still very cheap, right? The other one we're going to talk about, nanonuclear. It's not even showing up on here because they're still new, right? But they're like $500 million market cap, very low. And we're going to go through their presentation too. Now, this is the company that the Dr. Peter, he's one of the researchers for the company. Him and I have been talking for multiple years, and he was going to get me in the round at $1, right? And what this ran, was it $33? This was some of the news too we're going to go over. Basically, some of the reason why these are running. We kind of covered a little bit of this, but you can kind of see they're all being thrown in this, all these names that we're going to talk about. Even Lightbridge has been thrown in there. The funny thing is it's not making the reactors, right? It's the fuel rods. But you have a company like this that's still very, very early, right? Half $1 billion market cap. And the company ran up to 37, right? So I was like, just looking back, and I was like, wait, this company listed, and then knowing Peter and I had been talking for multiple years, getting me in would have been $1, not even, this is before. So at $1, and then it's already gone to 37. So it's like, wow, almost a 40 bagger already. I should have got in, but man. So that just tells you like, we're still very early, right? It's $19, but it's only $500 million market cap, right? And that might be smart for a company like this, but there's already been a lot of volume coming in. It's had record volume during this month, with it going down from that previous run, the peak that we've had back in, it was June. actually had the run, which is kind of funny. I think a lot of these longer term investors though are coming in early on. They see where this is going. Still a very tiny market cap stock like this, but they're going to take time, right? But Oklo is really interesting, and they're a little bit bigger, right? They're, what is it, 2 billion, 2.4 billion, right? And I consider this more like a developer. They're a little more ahead in this stage, I'd say. And I'd say Nano is more like an explorer in a sense, still doing well, still riding it up. They're going to be pretty much yoked together. The charts are going to be very similar, right? We've seen this in uranium too. A lot of these are all going to trade very similar. So it's like, you don't always have to pick the right name, especially if all these people are coming in, right? You said 88 billionaires bought in uranium in the last 4 years. You agree? I don't even think the last 4 years. I think it's starting to become like probably in the last like 12 months, maybe less, is when a lot of new investors started coming in. And that was my whole thesis, right? That was my whole thesis. The war kind of it became like a little bit of a black swan. A lot of these stocks might be a little farther ahead. They might have done a listing if there wasn't a war, like Nano would have probably listed public before that. But the AI stuff really helped jumpstart all this, right? AI is a big one. And crypto too. We had another Bitcoin halving, right? So it's going to be more energy and take more computing to make more, to mine more, right? So, just looking at it, there's always going to be a need for more energy. The population goes up. All this. And it's like the grid, the way it is, and electric vehicles and all this, this is the only way you can get it is through small modular reactors. And this is who's leading the world, literally the world at this, right? And go back to the presentation here. So Oklo is actually really interesting because they're really trying to do it on all different fronts. It's not just, and what they've said in this presentation, which I think was pretty interesting, was they don't want to sell just like nuclear power plants. They want to like sell energy, right? They want to be able to sell energy, which energy's gone up, right? So Oklo, their technology is based on the liquid metal cooled ones that we talked about. The fast reactors, there's over 400 reactor years of combined experience with that. So that they're going for the liquid metal cooled ones, which on that chart, what was that at right here? So yeah, liquid metal right here. So Oklo, TerraPower, Bill Gates, they're all looking to do the same thing. And these are sodium cooled as well, right? So which I like as well. And TerraPower, the whole recycling thing, I think was pretty nice. So I like that. It's a modern small scale design for these. And what's cool about these, they can like stack them, right? So these are fast fission, the reactor type. These will be 15 megawatts, up to like 50 megawatt and 100 megawatt plus as well. And one of the other cool things is what I was saying. I think they have it on this chart here. These larger ones, they can stack them. And these are for data centers, large data centers, industrial like Amazon, right? Utilities also. But these small ones, what's real cool is oil and gas industry, potentially small, medium data centers, the smaller stuff, industrial, and also real estate. And I think another one potentially could be military use for smaller stuff, maybe even indigenous tribes. But the medium ones is also, they have a different target customers, right? This one's oil and gas, industrial, utilities, and medium to large data centers. So there's a lot of different AI companies out there. These different types of reactors, they can sell these and they can also stack them. The cool thing is, I think they have there we go. So one 500 megawatt reactor that we see in the US, 10 of these smaller ones are a lot easier to operate, a lot, in a sense, safer too, and can be added as time goes on. 10 of theirs could replace that one big one. This is a little more risky too. You've got this one large reactor you got to keep cooled. You've got all the fuel rods kind of in one central location. And stacking, similar to how they do battery stacking with like lithium, right? The way the cells are, it seems like this is going to be a real benefit, and it's going to cut on costs, I think, and it's going to make it a lot less riskier for these companies. And if the companies want to upgrade, when you get a new NVIDIA processor, right, or a GPU, and they use 300% more power or 1,000% more, you're going to just need to pop in another reactor. So that's the kind of cool thing. Like these companies, data companies that might actually have their own, they could pop one in, right? Or if it's on the grid, they could be pumping back power into the actual grid itself, right? That's the cool thing. and maybe the big tax breaks for these companies, that are invested in it as well. The government likes that, right? They do that a lot with solar. But the problem with solar is that the amount of miles needed and just up for solar panels, and it's really dirty recycling these, not even talking about the fact that big oil is needed, right? When you're mining this stuff with big machinery to mine the REEs needed for this. So these companies are going to definitely profit, and it's oil and gas that are going to be using these as well. So they're not, and then the data centers. So Oklo, they say that the data centers they're made up of multiple halls, right? Built out halls by over half the time, leading to phased energy demand. So these data halls typically sized to consume 35 megawatts to 50 megawatts each. So these are big. In fact, I live by a lot of these data centers, okay? And guess what? There's not a lot of stuff going on. They just need power. They're using power. And what's crazy is we actually had a power outage recently here. And usually this state where I'm at has been pretty good. But guess what? This area, the data centers, they're building more and more. Intel and a bunch of other companies, and they use a lot. Look at how much in the current grid, because they're not pumping out a lot of nuclear here, that it's not able to handle as much. And we have other issues too. The cost of our electricity went up 60% in the past year. So this is something that's people aren't gonna like that the electricity keeps going up. They want to get the cost down, and with per megawatt, this is going to be the cheapest and cleanest and safest too, right? Oh, they also need reliability. Long needs for leads to multiple powerhouses providing power at each site, right? These data centers, they have, if they go down, the world's going to be in chaos, right? Because especially Amazon, AWS, like how many websites are going to be down? Like we've already had a hack of that, right? And we had some big issues. Banks, same thing. They use all this. So it runs on this, and it's like nuclear power, 20% of the US baseload power is nuclear. That's why we've pretty much done really well. I really think the other thing is, and we've talked about this in the past, is the energy, your country's GDP and the advancements in technology is always derived by the energy that your country can produce and also what you're consuming. If you got to be able to produce more and more, right? Or you're going to be sent back to the dark ages, right? You're not going to be able to, continue with the AI boom if your power grid has failed, and if literally your data centers are crashing, right? He's talking. Are you kidding me? Joe Rogan's talking nuclear with Donald Trump. I knew it, man. I'm surprised you guys are tuning in. Maybe we should jump in on that. I don't want to get demonetized though, because it's like live, right? It's probably like. Yeah, we'll finish this up, and the thing will be there, guys. We can all go watch it later. But you got Spotify. You can go listen to it later. Probably better, listen to it later anyways. Rewind it. But so the data center is going to be big, really big part of the thesis, I think, for a lot of these. We're already almost up 3 hours, right? So Oklo, this is something interesting too. The cost-oriented design for these Oklo is going to be down to $90, just normal advanced, and as low as $40. And this is per the clean energy firm's resources per megawatt an hour, right? Advanced nuclear is going to be 109, 66 at the lowest. Renewable storage, 119, down to 69. So natural gas, it's still better than natural gas, right? Natural gas has been pretty cheap, right? But it's still better. And it's a way cleaner, obviously, right? Cleaner than natural gas. The byproducts of this a lot less, right? It's not live 3 hours. Yeah, maybe the segueing, he's saying exactly the same things. Was it positive news about it, Kevin? It was literally positive, right? It's got to be. It's got to be, because that's the only way. I mean, both administrations know this, right? Both of them know pretty much you're going to have to do this, right? But that's a lot of people listening on that. He's talking about nuclear. You never know. Monday might be a big day again. So there's a lot in here, right? We talked about a lot of the data center stuff, but the national defense, oil and gas, I don't think people are realizing that these companies are going to rely on this as well. The way the grid works, it's going to be great. Utilities, we talked about Duke Energy, a lot of these, the big market cap stocks like the utility companies, Duke Energy, almost like 90 something billion, I think. Duke and Constellation Energy, but you have it across the board, real estate as well, industrial. So there's a big market for customers for them. Now, the Oklo specifically, I think they're a little more advanced, because like, I keep wanting to say Sam Bankman-Fried, but ChatGPT, what's his name? Right in here. Altman, right? Sam Altman, not Bankman-Fried. Bankman-Fried's the the other guy, FTX. But he's been, since 2015. So timed commercialization, people are like, okay, sounds great, but like how long? So prior to 2017, so they're in the licensing and first development of this. So remember, a lot of these are very early stages, some of them more than others, but it's about to be 2015. So, and remember, markets are forward looking, right? The investments are going to come early. They're not going to come when they get into production. They're not going to come when the field fabrication's starting and they're actually scaling all this and continue, putting in new reactors at these businesses. But there's going to be a lot of tests. And usually when this happens, especially with Centrus Energy, it was $4 when I was buying it. It hit 20, right? 20 very quickly. And then now 100 recently. So they were doing a lot of tests with the DOE and they're still not even up to full scale production. And it's already, since that valuation, it's already gone up massive amounts. 2016. So a lot of these companies, from early, since they've listed, they're still in this very early phase, but a lot of them have already started a lot of the process, right? The pipeline, we call it pipeline. So Oklo, the other thing is when you have big investors and board members like that, I think it really helps the stock too, because the fact that this company, they've kind of predicted the future in a little bit. 2015, they were working on all this AI stuff. I was investing in a lot of companies in AI, NVIDIA, Pure Storage stock. 2017, I really kind of saw the AI was coming along. I didn't put the nuclear at the time into that. It was more about investing in the AI, in crypto as well, the crypto side. A lot of stuff was during that time energy intensive, but a few years later, I started to put that together. Into 2019, starting to see energy. Got uranium on my radar about 2019, looking like we could actually start to see this AI stuff play off energy. And then we had a black swan, right? And a perfect opportunity. And that was really the thing that started to get this going, right? This energy need. And then just in the last year, AI, boom, starting to peak. But these companies, they're going to need investments. They're going to start diluting, right? So the stock we were talking about right here, and we're going to get to this. We're going to talk about the contracting, the option contracts, and potentially the way I've basically and show you small SMR. I created this, and if you guys use Option Strat, you can see I created this April 1st, 2024, and it was a very small size, right? Just 100, $9,500. The thing's already up 868%, right? And in a very short amount of time since April, the long calls, right? And this could have been a lot more, but a lot of people, you can see here on the chart that there's also a lot of puts. People are buying puts, $15 puts, because I think that these things are going to be mega volatile, right? But it shows you the price of how fast these things can go up, right? This is how cheap it was, right? Under $1. And the option contract's almost up $10, right? Up to $10. So these things can move fast, but with that comes, you get IV crush. IV can go up a lot, 81% here, but some of these other ones, a little bit harder to play. Some of these are up over 100, right? %. Now they do have options out to like 2027 in Oklo, and that's the Sam Altman board. And then the very tiny 500 million, obviously they're only out to like April of 2025 next year. That's the same as Centrus Energy. And it kind of made me mad because Centrus Energy, I wanted to get leaps way farther out, but that's not the way those two, because they're a lot smaller market cap, they didn't have those options. So cut down on the gains that I got specifically when trading it. But with the option strat, I like to build it out. The same thing with SMR. It's a little easier to build these out. And it just shows you how fast these things move. The market cap on SMR might have got a little ahead of itself, but during this time, there was actually cheaper options even before this, because the stock got down to $1 or something. It had already ran up just a little bit during that time, but it shows you that the plays here that you can do, and almost a 10 bagger already on that specific play, building it out, tracking it, and that's kind of the market we're in. And these stocks, they're not even in production. They're not even bringing a profit. And we that's the reason we do this. We track them, we look into it. And Oklo, I think it's going to be one of the ones a lot of people want to look at. They've got a lot of things coming up with the DOE. They've got, during this first quarter of the year, they had the DOE approved the safety design strategy for the Oklo Aura fuel fabrication facility. Because remember, this company I said is on this like threefold. They're going to be, a lot of the companies, they're actually going to want to also do fuel. fabrication, right? Not just sell electricity, right? Not just sell the reactors. The ones that can get into the fuel side, because all these reactors need fuel, right, are going to potentially have market caps, potentially like a small oil company, I think, potentially, or utility company, a smaller utility company, maybe larger if these go up. So if we're talking about a company that has a $500 million market cap, they start producing these reactors and get billions and billions of dollars invested in them, and funds start coming in, and then they start pricing them in when these reactors a few years start to happen. These things from $500 million market cap, they can compound into 10 baggers, which that's the title of this, right? They can go 1,000% very quickly. The options already showed you options on small SMR, stock. A new scale already up 1,000, right? In a very short amount of time. But just the fact the stock price itself can go up 1,000, the market cap of the stock, right? These companies are very, very early stage, right? But there's not many. It's not like you can come in and pretend. You can pretend to be a solar company. That's why there were so many scam solar companies, so many scam battery companies. We're talking Plug, Blink, all these were coming in and running up hundreds to $300. Massive, massive market caps, right? Totally crazy. All these YouTubers on YouTube, on finance, were telling you to buy at the very peak. I wasn't telling you to do that, right? I wasn't saying that. But right now I'm saying, okay, if these even get a percentage of what those companies ran up to, which these are legit, because you have to have nuclear engineers working on this stuff. You can't have some Bob that has a moose pasture and be like, yeah, we're going to do battery minerals. We're going to create a charging point at a gas station. And then it goes up to a freaking $50 billion market cap, 100 billion. It's like, what the heck's going on? These are tiny, but these, if they really do what they say they can do, selling fuel, and they can do it with a lot of investment from billion-dollar companies, right? Trillion-dollar companies coming in and investing in the R&D, and the government too. And the government's giving tax breaks. You could potentially see these. Maybe there's going to be a 100-bagger here. There's a potential. Maybe long run, we're talking 20 years from now, some of these, maybe even 1,000-bagger. We don't know what the future is going to be with these companies. We know that there's a potential for some of them to be basically a medium, maybe even a large oil type company. They could get bought out. A lot of these could get bought out. That's probably going to happen to most of these companies that with the reactor designs, they might get bought out by competitors and be shut down, or the actual license could not get renewed. We don't know, but we do know that a lot of the forefront companies, the ones that are starting to take off, have been working hard for years. A lot of this stuff. They need property, right? They need land to do these. So Oklo entered a land rights agreement to advance deployment of their 2 Aura powerhouse in southern Ohio. So Ohio, that area is pretty good, right? We've seen other, like with LEU Centris, some of their plants are up near there, right? That area. And then you got, like, obviously New York's pretty close, right? So that's a positive thing. They're already one step ahead of a lot of the companies that are even private. Some of these, because a lot of these are private companies. But the ones I'm talking about, are on the exchange. And they achieved their milestone in thermal hydraulic testing campaign. They signed an LOI to supply 50 megawatts, which isn't that much, but it's still good, power to the Diamondback Energy. So these LOIs are already starting to come in, right? LOIs for something that's not even there yet. So that's big when investors come in, right? Centris Energy has over $1 billion, right? So it's like, for a very small market cap, it's really good long-term for investors coming in, right? Bondholders, it's going to be really positive for the stock, right? Oklo also began trading on the New York Stock Exchange. This was very recent. So we're early on. But the great thing is, thankfully, these stocks didn't run up to 20, 30, 40 billion dollar market caps like majority of the stocks in a lot of these sectors, the SPACs and stuff. In these energy sector, plays back in 2020, a lot of these did. 2021, we're still very early. The fact that we're all here talking about this, we're very early still, right? And we're talking about a long-term play. 1,000-bagger status, or 1,000% from here could happen pretty fast depending who comes in, but we're talking longer term, right? We're talking longer term. They've got a lot of work to do. A lot of these companies are going to have to raise. One of the other companies we're talking about is already doing an offering, right? So, but that potential, the stock's up still today on that, right? The stock's up, but we tracking it see that there is a potential on all these pullbacks. It's still up 5%, right? So we look here, They did a $36 million stock offering, Nano Nuclear, right? And as a early almost $1 angel investor in this, kicking myself in the butt, maybe there's something I could do. Who knows? I got to talk to Peter. He's the doctor, by the way. We'll see their presentation in a minute. We're up on 3 hours now. Geez. Also signed an MOU with Atomic Alchemy to collaborate on isotope production. And they partnered with Wyoming Hyperscale to deliver 100 megawatts to its data centers. So they're already getting these LOIs, guys. They're already getting utility companies starting to come in and they see that, this is really going to be needed. This is the future. They completed a successful end-to-end demonstration of advanced fuel recycling process. This is another big thing TerraPower 2 is doing. The recycling, I think, is going to be really key in getting a lot of more investments going because it's a dry subject, right? The fact that you guys are staying here watching this, it's such a dry subject, right? But if you do the work, if you want to tune into a live stream on a Friday, this really could be a massive coffee can 100 bagger in the future. You never know. This could be, so could other ones. A lot of my friends that traded the oil and gas stuff, the uranium stuff in the early 2000s, some of those stocks became 1,000 baggers. Some of them knew friends that invested their 401k entirely in some of these stocks. And these stocks eventually ran up hundreds of percent, thousands, tens of thousands of literally percent. I think some of them in the oil and gas, there's some stocks that back in the early 2000s ran up 100,000 plus percent, like a few uranium stocks. And some players that talk about uranium, some of their friends did that. So you never know. This sector is still very tiny. There could be the same thing happening. They also established a preferred supplier agreement for steam turbine generation projects and services with Siemens Energy. Or is it Siemens Energy? Whatever it is. S Energy, we'll call them, right? So who cares what the name is? They're getting all this, right? And a lot of these companies, some of these I don't follow, I don't know, but the fact that the data centers they're already doing as well, isotope production, it's a big thing. And this is why Oklo is kind of one of the ones that's been starting to run. And its market cap is, what is it, like almost 4 or 5 times bigger than a few of the others. Now, the big thing, the asset development progress, their powerhouse, they've got the INL or a powerhouse. Vendors engage for site characterization by geotechnical firms to kick off at INL this year, supporting near-term license milestone. The field fabrication vendors engage for detailed facility design work to kick off in Q3 of this year, supporting DOE authorization of their oil field fabrication facility. And then the last thing, supply chain, signed preferred supplier agreement with Siemens Energy to provide steam turbine generation equipment and services. So they're doing good on this pipeline, right? The fact that they've already done all this, having just listed recently, is really nice. Their Q2 fuel recycling milestone. This is something that I actually like a lot in these companies. If they can do recycling, if they can recycle nuclear fuel, I think that's going to be probably one of the best things to get these investors, especially ones that might not know about nuclear energy, that it is very safe. The fact that they're like, oh, we can recycle this now instead of sending it off, and putting it into the middle of a mountain, right? And storing it, which is still safe. But the fact that they can recycle it, I think that's really key, right? They submitted white papers and held pre-application meetings with NRC on 3 key licensing topics. They didn't say exactly what those were, but obviously reactor designs, these things, the NRC, they're already in that process. And what we saw earlier, all those other companies were also in that NRC licensing process. So the boilerplate language, we should say, is be very cautious with a lot of companies popping up trying to pretend to be in the nuclear space. Any oil and gas little companies popping up thinking that they can do this, because there probably will be some bad players in this. But a lot of the plain holders, a lot of early on ones, especially if you have investors and board members, billionaires, and people that are at the front of the ones needing this and pushing the energy, then they're probably going to do a lot better, right? But I mean, there's so much more we can go into this. Big names across the board. Oklo's management, really, really smart. Their team comes from leading Fortune 500 companies, global corporations, government organizations, research. They're going to have a lot of help from the government. Some of the people work DOE, Boeing, Tesla, Google, Apple, you name it, CIA, and Department of the Navy, everything. You got good people working in this. And usually, like I said, the part about nuclear energy, a lot of the people in this are, you got a lot of people that that really believe in nuclear and really want to push it to the world. And things are really starting to change just in the last few years on nuclear energy. The real belief behind it, right? That people, even myself back in the past, I was always worried about nuclear energy. We had a nuclear power plant where I lived there in Texas, and I was always worried it was going to melt down during Y2K, right? And then that was until I was a kid, got to go to a nuclear power plant, and I saw how safe they were. It was there in Glen Rose, Texas, and it was literally where there's like Dinosaur Valley and everything. But it was like the most clean facility, the safest. They were the coolest. I got to go see the reactors, and that was kind of like the start where things started to change. And even as teenager growing up, I was less scared and obviously about it. And like, it was weird because people were always talking about, like, during that time, Y2K, they were like, oh, there could be a meltdown. And I think even the National Guard was flying over during that time just to make sure there was no attacks and stuff, right? So like during that 2001 era, it was a cool time, but it really showed me, and that's kind of why I'm on a Friday night talking about this. It's like, this is the future. This is even better than those plants, those older reactors, right? Which have been pretty safe, right? And hey, thank you guys for the follow, by the way. And yeah, Troy, I'm probably get over these few comments you guys were talking about. We've been locked in, right? Locked in this. The other thing we've been talking about, the stock's up 800 to 1,000% since I made the last video, but Rolls-Royce, right? Rolls-Royce is a massive company, but they are at the forefront of small modular reactors as well. So you got big companies now, especially since they've 10x since I talked about them, but bigger companies also, making these, right? It's not just startups. So there will be competition. Rolls-Royce, I love their engines, right? I worked on them as an engineer. So good, right? Rolls-Royce is also looking to push electrical engines in the aviation sector, which is really interesting, right? Electrical aviation, but that needs a lot of power. So they're also doing the small modular reactors, right? And their small modular reactors are going to be 470 megawatts. And these are a lot larger than some of these other ones that we're talking about, like stacking 5 or 10 or 50 megawatt reactors into one. These are larger, but you've got big companies like Rolls-Royce. And that's something I think people need to also remember, that it's not just going to be little new players. You got to have established names, utility companies, maybe big oil getting in this, right? Now, nano nuclear, this is the one we were talking about earlier. They really recently just did that, which is funny. They just did the offering and it's still going up, right? But this is the one that got it at $1 angel pre-round. I was offered and I didn't go with it. So you guys can call me dumb. That's pretty dumb, right? Especially because I knew that this stuff, we just didn't have the AI taking off. We didn't have that taking off just yet. I knew small modular reactors, I knew it was going to be competitive too, but they've done a really good job. One of the teams here though, I have to give a shout out to Peter. Peter has been, keeping me informed for multiple years on this and told me he could get me in the round early. So, but just with these companies, I'm not invested in this company, right? Like I said, I'm not invested. This is just one of the ones that is also ran up and is in the space. And I happen to know people and good people, very smart, right? And the thing is the industry is going to be very competitive. That's kind of what I wanted to get in this. And there's so much we pretty much already went over. But as far as this company, their pipeline, they've got more coming along, but they've already since last year been working on their external reactor validation audit, because a lot of this stuff, guys, is not something like other sectors, like getting a permit to mine gold and you're out there, you're doing it. This stuff takes time. But we've never seen this much U.S. government support ever really in this industry, right? We've never seen this. Complete design applications, that was last year into this year. They performed their hazard analysis. They prepare their license submittal, they put submittal, but they prepared their license to submit, right? I don't like that word submittal. It's kind of weird. License submittal. They've also purchased license for IP for the HALU transportation basket. So there's all these things. The good thing is the DOE, and I've watched a lot of these, Dr. Huff from the DOE, they're trying to make this a little bit easier because a lot of this stuff was so hard to do, so hard to get, especially if you wanted to make a nuclear power plant, not a small reactor, but the time it took, not only that, but to get any field fabrication going. That's why no one was doing it. DOE was the only one doing it, and we had to buy fuel from Russia, right? But this has all changed recently. Same thing with uranium mining, getting permitting. Unfortunately, a lot of bad players in the past might have left things bad. So it got a bad name, but things have really changed in the last few years specifically. But this company is still at the forefront. It's early on. I mean, this one also listed just recently on the exchange too. And like I said, I didn't even know. I hadn't talked to Peter in a little bit, in a few months, like probably 6 or 7 months, but they had already listed back in May, right? Had a big run up, but it's pulled back. But look at the volume though. I think a lot of the big volume is the big players coming into the stock already, coming in, establishing a position. They don't care if this goes to 40. They don't care if it goes back to 6, if it goes back to 3, during the first few days of this trading, right? They don't care. They're probably going to continue to buy up because this is only half a $1 billion market cap already. And even with the 36 million stock offering, the stock's still up. Didn't even go down after hours or anything, right? So it's because the amount of money coming into this, like I've said before with uranium, it's like it's like the contents of the Hoover Dam going through the soda straw, right? It's been said many times. And this is huge for a sector that's this small early on stage. These companies aren't going to be bringing in lots of money, but they could be getting government grants. There's a lot of positive stuff that could happen with these companies. This was just another one, nanonuclear. And they also have their hands in other things as well. And that's something it's been on my radar, right? Since the very beginning. And Centrus Energy, we've been talking about a long time on this channel. But if you guys are tuning in, we went over this last time, but just unlimited amount of support, bipartisan support from both sides. So even though we have election coming up, it could go either way. And I still think I'm still going to be very bullish. I think there's going to be massive pullbacks in the stock, especially in the market if we have volatility. These are tiny stocks. They're going to get rocked. They're going to go down, but that's why we're going to be tracking them. That's why I'm going to be tracking them entirely. And these things can do massive moves up, but they can also do massive moves down. This is SMR. SMR ran up very fast, right? In the very beginning, and it dropped down to earlier this year, not too long ago. January was down like 88%, right? Management was dumping. Unfortunately, management was dumping the entire time during this downturn. But guess what? It not only rocketed up just within a few months from this time, but it's almost going to be a 10-bagger already, right? And we already seen from the stock price, from the options price from April, it was literally April Fool's, showed you guys, it's already up like 800 something percent. That specific, very small play, right? 800% since then. And that's the type of gains that can happen in this. The options are way too expensive for me now to add to this, but maybe on the downside, a lot of people are buying puts. They probably want to hedge on the downside. I think that's one of the other things you got to do. If you guys want to, down below, there's options strat. This is great. This is what I use to track these. You can save everything. Some of my save trades, you guys seen some of my meta stuff here. There's another Tesla. This was like a joke type play. 420. Look at how fast this Tesla went. Some leaps out on 420. These things have already gone like crazy just because Tesla's been trading a bunch. But as far as you can save trades, some of my older ones, you guys know, with Centrus Energy, Meta was a phenomenal stock going at 88. Using this to track the options, some of the options on this early on, they were closed. I mean, look, I was going way far as far as I could go up, like $200 when this was like at 88 on some of those. Timing is everything on those. Some of the other positions though, shares, 2,500 long shares in there. But when you establish these, you can track shares as well as the options. You can build them out. And that's one of the things I really love about this. But as far as the options, I've kind of gone into this and it's there's not much because a lot of these have gone overpriced. IV's really high. But if we get a massive pullback, a massive drop, there could be some, like we had with Centrus Energy, there could be some really good trades in these as well. Right now, I'm not buying anything, right? I'm not buying anything, but some of these trades with Centrus Energy, the long trades, some of these were up 800% within a couple of days because we had a drop 25+% overnight in Centrus Energy. And I bought up a bunch of options. Same thing with shares in this. I bought lots of shares in this, but the stock price ran up like crazy. Unfortunately, stocks like this, the options don't go out as far. And it's really annoying because the good thing is though, both of these out to April, right? But our other one was out to 2027, right? I kind of not SMR, but we built one out for Oklo, and Oklo out to 2027. They've got some options. So I'll be watching that, just kind of like let people know I'm not buying up anything right now. I'm not going to hedge or anything. I don't have any positions in this just because I talk about this. I'm like, just let everyone know I don't own anything. I think that these will probably pull back really big, especially like I said, with the market pullback. But I think there's a big money to continue to be made in a lot of these, and the market caps are just so small, right? There's so much opportunity in these. And that's what I do. I like to track the options. One of the big things is in this is if you're really looking at each stock, you see that a lot of these are trading the same, right? A lot of these have a lot of the same on the technical side. Everything looks near, the same. But one thing from experience, if you track options, you track these things, sometimes you can get some really good deals. Right now, I don't really see anything too good with Oklo. A lot of this stuff's been priced in. A lot of these options have ran up. Look at this, like from $2 down up to $9. Recently, it was up to $11 to $12. We've had a little pullback. So these things are very volatile. IV is just rocketing up, right? It was almost 167% at that point, but they had a crush, right? Down to 108. So the prices are gone down. So I'm not recommending anyone getting into this. I'm just saying this is how I do it. A lot of y'all asked how, specifically how I did this. What were some of the other things we were going to cover tonight? Yeah. So I was going to tell you about this. I was actually just messaged Peter. Yeah. Peter was with Nano, and he was basically telling me during this whole time that he saw what I was seeing with this nuclear energy renaissance. And this was actually, we started talking before the war as well. Before the war, that kind of helped kickstart things into overdrive, right? But yeah, Nano's got a really good team. So we're going to continue to cover them and do more of a deeper dive. We've already been on live for like 3 hours and 15 minutes. But yeah, some of the publications, some of the place I got the data, World Nuclear Association website, a lot of this stuff's really good to track specifically what's happening in nuclear energy. Obviously on X, guys, some really good, great, brilliant people I follow. And also, sometimes you could just type literally a hashtag in with, say, like nuclear, and you'll find a lot of good information, right? So if you guys aren't already following, definitely follow in there. Follow my good buddy Roy at Crossroads. If you go on my Twitter, it's on there as well. But it's literally Crossroads on YouTube. Some great stuff. Hopefully you guys already did that. But guys, hopefully this has been a fun Friday night. We'll probably extend these a little bit more. We're just now starting to get started like on this type of thing, right? With not only live streaming, showing you guys my research, right? But with this nuclear energy run, Lightbridge is up 24% today, right? So like we're still early. There's a lot of like speculation in this, but this stock, honestly, a stock like this, because the market cap's so small as well, this is another one we track. This thing could be down 25% on Monday. Who knows? But I do like the volatility in this. In the past, day trading, swing trading has been a real big This is component of my trading, right? When you're trading, you really want to have that volatility, because in the past, like pre-2017, sometimes stocks would take forever to pan out, right? Now we're in this market that it's just like, it's one of the best for volatility, and uranium too. Uranium's pulled back a little bit. So it's been real nice. Let's see. Was you already considered just join the live stream, Tony? We were talking about, we went over some of the uranium ETFs and talking about specific stocks. The thing is, I like to create my own, in the sense, ETF when I invest. The problem with some of the ETFs, as we learned earlier, a lot of them are not tracking specifically with some of the uranium stocks. And that's just because now I think the market's starting to really call out companies that aren't invested or have these licenses yet, that aren't actually getting into production when they already should, especially with sustained price uranium so far and long-term contracting happening. So